You feel it first as a faint twinge when you sip your morning coffee. Something hot and electric zips along your jaw and fades just as fast. By evening, the twinge has become a steady, sullen drumbeat, a deep, angry pulse that makes the whole side of your face feel like a bruise.
You don't think twice. You open the bathroom cabinet, shake 2 white pills into your palm, swallow them dry, and within 20 minutes the world softens again.
That tiny ritual is so automatic that you've probably already forgotten you did it. But it's exactly that forgetfulness that would kill you. Because for 99.9% of human history, there was no cabinet.
No pill. No soft landing.
And what waited for you instead, in the flickering light of a fire, was a cure far more terrifying than the disease. If you stepped back even 2,000 years with that throbbing tooth, the treatment you'd receive wouldn't just fail to help you. It would finish what the infection started.
You wouldn't survive ancient medicine. Not because the healers were fools, but because your body, the one you're sitting in right now, is the most fragile thing they'd ever have laid hands on.
Let's begin where all ancient medicine begins, with pain. Real, grinding, unstoppable pain.
Picture a Neolithic settlement somewhere in the Fertile Crescent, 8,000 years ago. You're lying on a woven mat inside a mud brick hut, the air thick with wood smoke and the smell of animals.
Your molar has been rotting for weeks. At first the ache came and went, but now the gum has swollen into a hot purple bulge, and your cheek is twice its normal size.
You can't chew. You can't sleep.
You're feverish, shivering, drenched in sweat, and you know, with the kind of certainty only agony can bring, that something has to be done. Someone fetches the healer.
This person is not a doctor in any way you'd recognize. No white coat, no instruments, no concept of bacteria. They wear a necklace of animal teeth and carry a leather pouch filled with dried herbs, sharpened flints, hollow bird bones.
In their world, illness is caused by spirits or curses or an imbalance of humors you've never heard of. To them, your swollen jaw is a demon trying to eat its way out.
And they intend to stop it. What they do next will sound like pure horror to you, but to the community gathered around your mat, it's perfectly routine. The healer kneels beside your head, takes a stone drill, a tiny flint point hafted onto a wooden stick, and places it directly against the inflamed gum.
Then, with a small bow or a spinning palm, they begin to drill. There is no numbing, no sterilization, no way to keep you still except the hands of your relatives pressing down on your shoulders.
The sound is a grinding, gritty whine that vibrates straight into your skull. The pain is a white-hot explosion that blots out everything.
Blood and pus and splinters of tooth mix with your screams. Believe it or not, this is not fiction.
Archaeologists have found human teeth from the Stone Age with tiny, perfectly round holes drilled into them. And microscopic analysis shows the cavities were already infected when the drilling happened. The procedure was widespread, from Pakistan to Denmark, from 7,000 to 9,000 years ago.
And here's the unsettling detail. Many of those jaws show signs of healing. The patients lived. Some of them lived for years afterward.
In a Danish mass grave, a man who had his wisdom tooth drilled survived long enough for the bone to smooth over the hole. So why wouldn't you?
Because you, with your sanitized hands and your pasteurized milk and your lifetime of antibiotics, are an immunological ghost. Your body has never had to fight off the swarm of microbes that live in ancient soil, ancient water, ancient mouths.
The healer's stone drill wasn't clean. It was rubbed with spit or dipped in a stream before touching your open nerve. The moment that flint pierced your gum, a flood of bacteria you have zero defense against would pour into your bloodstream. This isn't the tame staphylococcus on your skin. These are ancient strains of Streptococcus, Fusobacterium, anaerobic monsters that have co-evolved with the humans of that place for thousands of generations.
Your ancestors, the ones who survived, could weather that storm.
Your immune system would react either too slowly or not at all, or it would overreact into a cytokine frenzy that collapses your organs. You'd be dead of septic shock before the healer finished packing the wound with chewed-up leaves.
And if the infection didn't kill you, the blood loss might. In the ancient world, letting blood was not a last resort. It was the first resort.
Almost every culture on Earth independently invented bloodletting as a cure. From the Egyptian priests who sliced veins with sharpened reeds, to the Babylonian healers who used leeches, to the Aztec physicians who pierced the tongue and the ears and the genitals to release bad wind. The logic was universal and intuitive. Sickness was a kind of pressure, a congestion, a poison trapped inside. Let it out, and the body would calm.
So imagine you walk into an Egyptian house of life around 1500 BCE with a fever and a cough. The healer, a scribe physician trained in the sacred texts, examines you carefully, listening to your breathing, checking the color of your eyes, smelling your sweat. He diagnoses an excess of hot, wet humors.
The treatment is to open a vein on the inside of your elbow with a bronze lancet. Now, in a modern hospital, a unit of blood is about half a liter, and giving more than that requires careful monitoring.
The Egyptian healer has no way to measure how much blood you're losing. He'll hold a bowl under your arm and watch the crimson flow until he feels the humors have balanced, which, in a feverish, dehydrated body, could mean draining a liter or more.
You'd slip into shock. Your heart would race, trying to pump an ever smaller volume of blood. Your skin would go cold and clammy.
Your vision would tunnel to a pinprick. But wait, you might say, if bloodletting was so deadly,
how did civilizations rise if their doctors were killing patients? That's the thread we need to pull. Because the answer is the counterintuitive heart of your own fragility.
The Egyptians, the Greeks, the Maya, they weren't killing everyone. They were killing the vulnerable.
And you, modern human, are the most vulnerable creature they'd ever have met. For them, bloodletting was a controlled physiological stress.
Their bodies were primed for it. They grew up with chronic intestinal parasites, periodic famine, iron-poor diets. Their blood volume and clotting factors and vascular tone were honed by a life that never let them get soft.
When an ancient Egyptian had a vein opened, their body clamped down, conserved fluid, ramped up red blood cell production. They might have felt faint, but they'd recover.
Your body has never known true scarcity.
Your blood is thick with iron from fortified cereals. Your veins are relaxed. Your bone marrow is lazy. Losing even a moderate amount of blood would crash your system. You wouldn't just feel faint. You'd likely die on the floor of that temple while the healer chanted prayers over your draining life.
And there's an even deeper twist. Some ancient treatments actually worked so well that we still use variations of them today, but they would still kill you.
Take the case of willow bark. For millennia, healers from China to Sumer to Greece knew that chewing the bark of certain trees could ease pain and reduce fever.
The active compound, salicin, is the botanical cousin of aspirin. The Greek physician Hippocrates prescribed willow leaf tea for women in childbirth.
So if you took that agonizing toothache to a classical Greek doctor, he might have handed you a cup of bitter willow brew. And you'd have thought, something I recognize. Something familiar.
Here's the trap. The difference between a healing dose and a lethal one is a razor's edge. The concentration of salicin in wild willow bark varies enormously depending on the season, the tree, the part of the plant used.
You could easily swallow 3 times the toxic threshold in a single cup. And your modern stomach, unaccustomed to such raw bombardment, would start bleeding internally.
Aspirin in high doses erodes the stomach lining. Raw willow extract, with its mix of tannins and alkaloids, is even more caustic. You'd feel a burning deep in your gut, then nausea. Then you'd vomit black streaks of digested blood.
Within hours, you'd be passing dark, tarry stools. Internal hemorrhage would set in, and the healer, seeing your collapse, would likely diagnose a spiritual attack and set about cutting you open to release the evil. A cascade of interventions, each one pushing you closer to the edge.
But the willow bark isn't the most heartbreaking example. The one that truly drives a knife into the modern soul is the story of trepanation, the deliberate cutting of a hole into the living human skull.
It's the oldest known surgical procedure, older than writing, older than cities. Skulls with neat, round openings have been found from France to Peru, some dating back 10,000 years.
For a long time, archaeologists assumed it was a ritual killing, a way to extract bone amulets from the dead. Then they started finding skulls, with the edges of the holes smoothed by new bone growth. Proof that the patient lived for months or even years after the operation.
Picture yourself in that scenario. A sharp blow to the head has left you dazed, confused, maybe seizing.
The ancient healer suspects a buildup of pressure, a trapped spirit, and so they cut away a portion of your scalp, scrape the flesh from the bone, and use a sharpened flint or a bronze shark tooth saw to carve a disc of skull free. The noise alone would be unimaginable, a skittering, grinding screech conducted straight into your inner ear. And yet, the archaeological record shows that in some cultures, up to 70% of trepanese survived.
70%. Without anesthesia, without antisepsis, without any knowledge of brain anatomy.
How? They survive because they had something you lack: a lifetime of exposure to the microbial world, a skin and gut and blood teeming with a trained army of immune cells that could swarm any invader with brutal efficiency.
Their bodies knew the local bacteria personally. A cut in the scalp, even a deep one, would become red and angry. But then, more often than not, settle into healing. Your scalp would do the opposite.
The moment that flint touched you, staphylococci and streptococci from the dirt, from the healer's hands, from the animal sinew thread they used to sew you up, would colonize the wound. Within a day, pus would be pooling under the skin.
Within 3 days, the fever would spike uncontrollably. The wound would turn black.
And you'd be dead of bacterial meningitis or a brain abscess before the bone could even begin to knit. To really feel the weight of this, let's look at some numbers.
In the 1860s, when surgeon Joseph Lister first introduced antiseptic techniques, the mortality rate from simple surgeries like compound fractures was around 45%. That's in Victorian hospitals with trained doctors, anatomy knowledge, and steel instruments.
Before that, in the early 1800s, a surgeon operating on a patient was more dangerous than a soldier marching into battle. Now roll back 30 centuries. Modern analysis of ancient Egyptian medical papyri shows they had formulas for wound care that included honey, which we now know is antibacterial. But they also used raw meat, moldy bread, and animal dung, all of which introduced lethal bacteria directly into open tissue.
In one study of mummies, researchers found evidence of tetanus in nearly half the individuals they examined, the bacterium likely entering through ritual tattoos or medical incisions. So if you stepped back with a simple cut on your leg from farming or hunting, the ancient healer's poultice of mud and herbs would likely give you lockjaw, causing every muscle in your body to contract in spasms so violent they snap your bones.
And your only recourse? They'd try to bleed you, or purge you, or drill a hole in your head to let the demon out.
The loop closes tighter and tighter until there's no way out. You might think that if you just avoided doctors, you'd be fine. Hide your symptoms, tough it out.
But ancient illness didn't give you that option. Infections we now cure with a 3-day course of pills would have been relentless, progressive, consuming.
A simple strep throat could descend into rheumatic fever, your joints swelling like balloons, your heart valves scarring into stiff ruin. A urinary tract infection would climb into your kidneys and poison your blood over agonizing weeks.
And then you'd be so obviously sick that your family would drag you to the temple, where the smell of incense and burning herbs and the moans of other sufferers would fill your final conscious hours. Let me tell you about one more haunting piece of evidence, because it wraps all of this together in a single, quiet, devastating artifact.
In a tomb near Thebes, archaeologists found the mummy of a woman who lived around 1550 BC. She had a surgical wound on her abdomen, carefully stitched with linen thread.
Beside her were amulets and spells for a safe passage to the afterlife. Under microscopic examination, the tissue around that wound showed no signs of healing at all. No new cell growth, no clotting, no immune response. She died on the operating table, or moments after.
The healer had done everything right according to the knowledge of the time: clean incision, plant-based salve, sacred words. And still she bled out, or the shock stopped her heart.
You, a person whose body has never been cut except in a sterilized operating theater for antibiotics flowing, would be even faster to fall. Now lean back from this long, bloody journey through time, and look around the room you're sitting in.
There's probably light at the flick of a switch, clean water in a glass, a bandage stripped somewhere, in a drawer. You probably have a scar or two from a childhood fall, a stitch you barely remember, a root canal you slept through. The marvel is not that ancient medicine was brutal. It's that you're alive right now in a body that would have been a death sentence just a few hundred generations ago.
The same immune system that would have failed you so spectacularly in a Neolithic hut is the one that, today, protects you precisely because you were born into a world of vaccines and pasteurization and antibiotics. It was never weaker. It was simply tuned to a different frequency.
The ancient world broadcast a dense, chaotic, threatening signal of constant microbial exposure. Your body learned silence instead.
And when silence meets noise, silence breaks. Your ancestors did not survive ancient medicine.
Your ancestors survived countless millennia of illness and injury in the hands of well-meaning healers, who had no idea what they were doing, often despite the treatments they received. The ones who made it through the bloodletting and the trepanning and the dung poultices are the ones whose cells remember the worst, and that memory is written in your DNA.
But it's a memory your daily life never has to wake. Tonight, when you brush your teeth and the minty foam washes away the plaque, you'll be standing in a stream of time where every comfort is a miracle, and that faint twinge in your gum,
It will never be a death sentence. It will only be a reminder, soft, gentle, ignorable, that the past is full of pain you will never have to feel.